Hello, it's Dave or Davido Libido, and today we've got this to look at. It's the Wooting 1 keyboard. It's 10 keyless, which means it doesn't have a numpad, but it does have 87 or 88 keys depending on your layout. The board's quite light at 800 grams, and yeah, I do like it. It's got a nice aluminium top plate to give it some strength and some sturdiness, and it does look pretty damn nice. I'm quite partial to the standardised font. You know, it's not got any shitty crappy gamer font. It's nice, and it's also got a lot of media controls. These are a winner for me. I'm a big fan of media controls. I like hitting music when I'm working, and it just makes it a lot easier. They work with Spotify and things like that, so it's a win for me. There's also a mode key and some lighting controls here as well. The rest of the keyboard is pretty standard. On the back, you know, you've got some feet and you've got some little rubber gubbins to stop it sliding. The feet are really useful. They just flick up and flick down. They've got a nice little flick to them. They're rubber coated, like I said, to stop them sliding, and that's pretty much it, the feet. So that's the keyboard, but there's other things in the box, of course. We've got, when I can open this, we've got a Wooting postcard. We've also got a nice little manual, which my lights are too bright so you can't see. It's just like a quick start guide. No one really cares about them, but they're always useful. But yeah, I might send the Wooting postcard back to Wooting. You've got quite a long cable. I think it was 1.8 meters. I did measure it, but I've forgotten. And it's just a micro USB with a nice sleeve on it, soft sleeve to stop it sliding. One good thing with this keyboard is it has got channels so that it can go to the middle, to the left or to the right of the keyboard to make sure it goes wherever you want. Also in the box you've got a keycap puller, which also turns into a switch puller. I'll show you that in a minute. And you've also got some additional switches which I can't get out the box. No, seriously, they're stuck. Oh no, that's one. Why are you so hard to get out the box? Come on, you're on camera. There we go. So that's two. Both of these switches are different. You've got one that's a linear switch. Oh, and you've got screws. I forgot about the screws. As we're saying, both of these switches are different. You've got one that's a linear switch and one's that's a clicky. The left one is the linear, which is the red switch, and the one on the right is the clicky, which is blue. No, you haven't gone colourblind. They've just named them this to be in line with other brands, really. The spec of them is quite similar to those you'd find from, say, Cherry or Kale or somebody like that, and that's why they've done it. Speaking of the switch spec, let's have a look at it. As you can see, the FlareTech Prism switches are pretty much the same as each other. The only difference is that obviously one's got a clicky tactile feedback and one's just a linear switch. Now, when we compare the Prism switches with the Cherry switches, you can see there are some differences in their operating force. The FlareTech Prism Red has a 55 cm one, and the Cherry MX Red is 45 cm. This turns out to be roughly 53 and 43 grams if you're looking at it in grams. But yeah, the difference is pretty negligible, to be honest. The Cherry MX Blue is 60 cm compared to the FlareTech Blue of 55. Other than that, the only real difference is slightly different actuation points, which means you have to push the FlareTech switches down slightly less, and the keystroke rating, which, to be honest, if you're hitting 50 million keystrokes, you're a busy boy. I don't think having 100 million keystrokes is going to make much difference to you. If we open the switches up, we can see there's some quite big differences to the Cherry Green switch, which is at the bottom of the screen. The top switch is the FlareTech Prism Red, and the middle one is the FlareTech Prism Blue. Both of the FlareTech switches have a lower housing, a spring, a light tube, which basically just enables the light shine from the PCB up to the top of the switch, and also the plunger. The blue switch also has a clicker and a click leaf that's just to make the clicking noise. The unusual part with these switches is they've got no terminals or pins inside the switch like the Cherry one does at the bottom. The FlareTech switch is an optoelectronic switch and works by having an infrared light and a sensor on the keyboard's PCB. The plunger changes the amount of light that's seen by the sensor, and this is what makes this keyboard a bit unique and gives it its analogability. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. The good thing about this switch and the way that it's been made is you can actually remove the switches from the keyboard. You just use the keycap puller, flip it over, and it becomes a switch puller. You can replace the switch by just putting a new one in and placing it on, giving it a good push. So let's get back to this analog business. My light switch can be off or it can be on, like normal. But with the dimmer switch it can be lowered and brightened. Now this is different, it's analog. Also I need to paint around my light switch that I've just noticed. What's that about? Just like the light switch, the flare tech switches can be fully on or fully off. However, there are increments this time in between which allow you to have more control. This is particularly good in driving games, or if you want to peek around a corner, say, in PUBG. You've got full control of where you want to go. It's really useful in games, as I've said. Something not so useful in games is RGB, but it's here. We're accepting it. Wooting has created this app called Wootility, and it's got all the different lighting effects. You've got some presets, you've got some dynamic modes which we'll go through. My favourite's this one, which is the pastel. No, it's not, it's the Miami. The pastel's this one. The Miami one looks quite nice. I will mention that my camera really isn't picking the lighting up very well, and it is far brighter and far more vivid to the naked eye. My camera's getting on a bit now, it's 4 years old, something like that, and I'm not very good at using it. You've probably already found out when I've tried to do sweeping shots and it judders and whatnot. The dynamic effects can be changed with speed to medium or fast or slow. It's up to you, and you can also change it from right to left. A lot of the other modes are modes that you've probably seen on other keyboards. The scan, I know, is on a few different boards. Difference is I don't think you can change the width on a few of them, which you can on this one. You can go all the way up to 10 keys worth of width, and you can also change the idle brightness on the background of the keys, and that allows those that need to see the keys in the dark to see them while still keeping the effect, it's pretty cool. You've got the breathing effect that you've seen multiple times. You've got cycling, which just cycles through the colours, and then you've got ripple, which is an active effect. You have to press a button to make it happen. It's pretty standard stuff, but people who like RGB want this stuff, so I can understand why Wooting have put it in. It makes sense. You might as well have it if you're paying the money for it. There will be people that won't buy keyboards because it's got no RGB. I generally have it turned off. So, yeah. Now, this one is really interesting. I know that sound is somewhat sarcastic, but I actually mean it. The more you push the key down, the more the F keys show the registration. So it's really cool. The harder you push it down, the more lights that show, and it goes all the way up to red and all the way up to F12, which is nice. This one does the same. The more you push the key down, the more lights show, the redder it gets. It's pretty cool. This is nice. I like this. This one is AOE. It's just another setting really. You press the buttons, keyboards light up in a little area of effect around it, hence the name. But yeah, there's nothing really special about that. The lights do change colours depending on which scheme you've got. Obviously mine's on rainbow, so everything was surrounded by rainbows, but you can change the colours. You can do this by choosing through one of the presets that I showed you earlier, or you can also paint the keyboard. Now you can change the colour that you want to use. I'm using red here, I've just changed it to blue now. You can do quite a lot. You can also turn the lights off by picking black, so if you don't want WASD lit up, change it, turn it off. If you want it pink, do it, why not? In fact, let's change it pink. I like pink. Bit of pink's always good. So change it all to pink. If you want another colour, let's chuck a yellow in there for WASD. Let's have green maybe, red, I don't know, red, yeah, red on the arrow keys. You can pretty much do what you want. Now, moving away from the RGB side of things, let's have a look at the rest of the Wootility app. You've got two input methods, one's direct input and one's X input. These basically emulate controllers, giving you that analog feel in games and enabling you to do everything. And you've got analog curve settings to give you more control over when the analog starts and stops on the keyboard. For instance, if you're in the game and wanted to start walking at the 1.5mm actuation point, but didn't want to start running until, say, 3mm, you can actually create the curve especially for this. You can also decide whether you want to enable the digital keys at all, and also set an actuation point for when these are enabled. A few of the key bindings can be changed, such as the mode key, the function key, and also you can change the analog profiles. You can pretty much set these to whatever you want. I kept them as they were perfectly fine for me, but the option's there obviously if you want it. So moving on to the DKS settings, these are pretty funky. Basically they allow you to select any key, set them so they can do one or multiple things, and then they change what the key does depending on how much you push the button down. So for example, I'm choosing left control as my key, D and A as my two other keys, and then I'm setting the actuation points, and then we'll have a pop into Word and see what this does. If I slightly actuate the switch, you get the D. I set this up just so I could say that. But if you actually push the switch further, you get the A, and basically you've got two key presses on the single switch. It's really useful in games if you get used to it. The last thing we look at is going to be the profile manager and how to import a profile code. What you can do is once you've created your profile, made your lighting, set your keys up, done all your double key presses and all that kind of jazz, you can actually create a code and upload it or share it with your friends. There's a website that's got some codes already on it, and quite simply all you have to do is find the one you want, copy the code, paste it into the profile manager area, and you can then choose whether you get the lighting settings, the key presses, or the double key switches, you know, all that kind of nice stuff. It is a really nice option, to be honest, and it's cool how it's worked. Now, this is all very well and good, but how does it perform in games? You know, we've spoken about the RGB, we've spoken about the key settings, so let's jump into game and see how it works when it matters. Yeah, so this is slightly embarrassing. The Wooting one isn't supported on all games. Some games it just really doesn't like it, like this one. This is an old game and it does come up with an error to tell you that it's not going to be supported, and you can't change the keyboard back to being like a normal keyboard and it will work on most games. So let's get to a game that does work and see what we're doing. This one's Dirt 3. I'm not a big racing fan, but we'll have a go and see what we can do. We'll start off with the standard keyboard, you know, just without the analog, and this means that a key press is going to be full on or off. There's no middle ground. You can see this on the steering wheel, you touch it and it goes fully left straight away. The only way to stop it is removing your finger from the key, which is how you usually race. You have to keep tapping. And after playing with the Wooting one for a while, I have got a lot worse playing this game with the keyboard as a standard keyboard. Before I never really noticed it, but after you just feel like the controls are really twitchy. This is my first game back after using the Wooting, and don't get me wrong, I was terrible before, but now I'm even worse. So let's restart the race and try it with the Wooting keyboard. All we need to do is go into the options and change it so that we're using a controller rather than a keyboard, and then basically drive. Straight away you can see that you can actually move the wheel slightly to the left or right rather than going full blown. To be honest, I'm still bad at the game. I did a lot better with the Wooting than I did with the keyboard, but this is my own skill rather than anything else. The keyboard did perform a lot better. You can see straight away I'm actually taking corners better, I'm not nearly taking up the shed, and that's why it just felt like it feels so much smoother. I'm still getting used to the Wooting keyboard, so there is a lot of error by me, but I think if I got used to it more, I'd actually be good. Well, no, I wouldn't be good. I'd be better at racing games. I did try a lot of other games with the Wooting keyboard. I tried PUBG, which was fine. I wasn't quite as good, but that's more of the fact that it was the first time back at PUBG, first time I was using the keyboard, and it just felt a little bit strange setting it up and getting it running. I think with a bit more practice I'd be fine. Tried Overwatch, it worked fine. There wasn't that much use for for the settings in Overwatch. I did do a nice little hook and punch thing, hook, shoot, punch type deal with a couple of keys, which was nice, but other than that, there wasn't that much on it. I tried GTA 5, which was fantastic, and I tried Rainbow Six Siege, which worked if you didn't want to shoot. It seemed like the more, if you walk, you can't shoot, and that was it. You could either use the keyboard or use the mouse, and I'm guessing that's down to the game being either controller or keyboard and mouse. You can't use a controller and a mouse. So yeah, that's where I was with the games. I did get footage of all this. Unfortunately, because I had Adobe Premiere open, I had Adobe Photoshop and a few other things open, all the footage was staggery and jittery because I was using all my RAM. So yay me, well done Dave. So whilst we finish off this race, which I come dead last in, by the way, no surprises, I crashed about 5 times, I just want to have my final thoughts and, wrap it all up. The CEO of Wooting actually was a bit apprehensive about me having a look at this keyboard. He knows I'm a big keyboard fan, he knows I'm into my enthusiast boards, and he knows I build my own keyboards. The Wooting one though, it is a good board. I do like it. I do like how easy the switches are to swap over. I'm used to desoldering 105 switches every time I want to switch a switch out. On this, you just pull it off and plop one back on. There's some things that I don't like particularly about the keyboard. One of them is that it's a little bit light. I'm used to CNC milled cases on my keyboards, which gives them a lot more weight, and this one hasn't got that. But neither of 99% of the off-the-shelf keyboards, so it's not specific to Wooting at all. I like the fact that they give you some spare screws for the top plate, and also I like the software that's pretty simple. And that's pretty much it for this keyboard. It's done. It's a good board. If you want a board and you want analog switches, go out, have a look at it. You can't go far wrong. That's it for me now, so I'll see you in a bit. Bye.